They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Chen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello, welcome to They're All Dead, Dave, a Red Dwarf review podcast. I almost tripped over my words there. With me, Phil Hawkins.
And me, Adam Martyn.
Yes, we are the duo that is going through every episode of Red Dwarf weekly here on the channel. At least we think it's weekly. We think we're going to release weekly.
We think so.
We're back to recording the first 6 of these, so things are still a little up in the air. Like, we recorded the first 2 episodes, and then I got the theme tune after that. Now, if you like the theme tune, it's composed by composer Stephen Kingsbury. Do go check out his website, which is stephenkingsbury.com. Nice and simple. He is a composer of many things, including lots of musicals. So go check that out if you like the theme tune. But one thing I noticed when I was putting on the clips there for the theme tune is that I have slightly misnamed this podcast, but 3 episodes in, I think it's slightly too late to think. I've misquoted on the title of the podcast, I think, because the final bit isn't "They're all dead, Dave." It's "Everybody's dead, Dave."
Everybody's dead. They're all dead.
I mean, he does start by saying "They're all dead."
He does. It's close enough,
it's kind of
isn't it?
combining the first quote with the last quote. I think it's fine. We'll go with it.
It's how we get around Red Dwarf makers coming after us.
Yeah,
Say, we haven't
episodes
stolen it, you know.
Yeah, we can't be changing it now. So I am someone who has watched Red Dwarf since the 90s. If you're new to the podcast, I've been watching it since the 90s, whereas Adam is fresh and new to watching it.
I am. This is my first watch through ever of Red Dwarf. All I had before this, again, if you knew, was scraps of knowledge, maybe a few images here, a few clips there, but I'd never sat down and properly watched an episode until this run through. And if you're here, I am 3 episodes in, technically, on this episode.
Yeah, we're up to episode 3, Balance of Power, in which Lister decides that he's had enough of Rimmer bossing him about as the senior technician and the only person on the ship, so therefore technically outranking everybody else, which is just Lister. And so he decides that he's going to try and do an officer's exam and try and outrank him.
Indeed.
And hilarity ensues. What was your general thoughts of this episode?
Yeah, I like obviously the title hints at it, but just the central concept we're seeing how both of these main characters can exert their power, despite one being technically superior in terms of rank, and obviously all the comedy that comes out of it. But I wrote in my notes, this is definitely, I think, more Rimmer's episode. There was a lot more moments Rimmer had that either made me laugh or I just thought connected. Not that, no disservice to Craig Charles, he did a great job, but even though it's quite funny, it's called Balance of Power, but I think the episode leans slightly in Rimmer's favour just in terms of what he got to do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Rimmer is somebody that likes to follow the rules to the letter and all that sort of stuff. But Lister is very much somebody who isn't. So in a way, with just the 2 of them on the ship, to him, it doesn't actually matter that Rimmer outranks him. He would ignore him at every possibility. But there's some clever things that they put in and write into the plot that means that he's sort of blackmailed into listening to him, because at one point Rimmer has Rimmer has, the I can't say that word. Seniority.
Yeah, that higher rank status.
Yeah, the higher rank status, which does mean that he can request stuff from the computer, which Lister can't. And presumably he's used that to find out various manifests and stuff. And what he's done is basically he knows where all the cigarettes are, and he's not telling Lister where they are. And he's only giving him cigarettes when and if he does what he's told.
Mm-hmm.
Which
It's
I
the
thought was a
blackmail,
nice way of
isn't
getting,
it?
yeah, it's blackmail. But I thought it was a good way of getting around the fact that Lister's character really wouldn't listen to him. He wouldn't care that he was outranking him.
Yeah. I feel that's what I love about Lister so far, that even when he's being like bossed about or even like blackmailed, whatever, he's just this chilled out guy. Do you know what I mean? He's just like, he just cracks on in his own way. And I just kind of like that, someone who just, you could say they're a bit of a slob, but he just gets on with it. I must say, though, the prevailing thought from this episode, because I think sometimes I forgot as well, because obviously so much focus on this one is specifically on Dave and Rimmer. I forgot that Kat was in this episode, and Kat does appear, of course, like in a few scenes here or there. And I don't know, I wrote this down just because it was the first thing that popped to my head. If you've listened to episodes 1 and 2 of this podcast, you'll know when we very first saw Kat, it came across to me as sort of, like a pastiche of, say, someone like Prince or Michael Jackson, a pop star of that era, if you like, the late 80s. But I don't know what it was. Something about his movements, his actions, and maybe it's the fact he kept saying, "Yeah, I'm looking good." It just reminded me of James Brown. It was very like James Brown sort of soul man. You're going, "Ooh, ah," and like the whole, "Ooh, I'm looking good." Like, do you know what I mean? And I don't know why it was this episode in particular. Maybe it was just the combination of the mannerisms and the voice, but it was just the first thing that screamed out in my head. I was like, "This is very James Brown." So. Yeah, I think it's, it's not a bad thing necessarily, but I think it ties into what I said in previous episodes where even though he has evolved from a cat, at the minute he still comes across a bit more to me as like sort of that, I guess, pop star pastiche more than a cat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, although they seem to be a recurring trope in it, does seem to be that they give him cat qualities that they hype up. Like in this one, it's claiming shiny things as his own. He gets, laser focused on the shiny things, and he only cares that they're shiny, and he's like, no, that's mine now. I found it, it's mine. And that strikes me as a very sort of cat quality, and it's a trope that, well, I think it probably runs throughout the whole series, but the whole of the like 10 or 12 series or whatever we're on now. But particularly in these early ones, they really played it up, and it was kind of all Cat was. It's the sort of pop star coolness and the cat qualities, and that's all there really is to the cat character at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, we've got so far to go. We've got several series, and I'm sure there will be more development. I think it's just, and maybe it's just because, I've not watched this show before, but I think I'm starting to feel like, it'd be nice to see a bit more from this guy at the minute than just the whole, "Ooh, ah, looking good." Like, because, again, they sort of did that in the, first and second episodes, and it is a funny recurring gag, but at the minute it's sort of, I feel, all that's being offered currently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Just generally, my general thoughts of the episode, I thought it was a good premise, which, had a lot of comedy potential, and I think they did it. It explored the relationship between the two of them. They are the main two characters, really, at the moment, Lister and Rimmer. So, it's good to explore their character. I would like to see some more of the rest of the crew, but, well, I say the rest. It's only really two more, Kat and Holly. Talking of Holly, the opening bit where he recaps the situation potentially for new viewers. I assume they did that because terrestrial television, there was no chance to rewatch episodes, so you could be getting people that have never seen the show come in every episode.
Yeah,
and just having something at the beginning that summed up the premise of it is quite a good idea, I suppose.
Yeah, it's nice, and obviously it's done in the character of Holly, which, as we've discussed before, is that sort of just deadpan. So it'll deliver some fine jokes about the preceding episode with a bit of comedy and a bit of wit. And you're right, it is a good way of reintroducing people to the story as opposed to the good old-fashioned BBC way of just before the programme. You'll get a little caption card and an announcer will go, "Previously on Red Dwarf, Dave Lister went and did this." And, that sort of very stoic, here's what happened. This is actually very much in keeping with the show, of course, because, I mean, it's Holly who's delivering it. One of my favourite scenes from this episode was the whole flashback scene of, like the party in the canteen.
Yes.
Yeah, because I thought it was a really, it seems obvious, but it's a very clever way to just show us more characters who are obviously dead, but to sort of break up that pace of, it's just, Dave and Rimmer primarily. And it's just nice to see the sort of start and end of it. I thought was actually quite tender for the series, just Lister sitting there in the canteen on his own, and you've got some somber music playing. Do you know what I mean? It's just a brief stop to say, I guess, to remind the audience, like, whilst this show's funny, it's like, he is, by all intents and purposes, on his own. Everyone he's known is gone.
It's a reminder of what he's lost.
Yeah, and it just made me Sorry, go on.
Sorry, no, go. You go.
I was just gonna say it made me laugh seeing the banner that said 1990s night or whatever, because I was like, this show was made in 1987 and they've done this cute little fast forward, and it made me laugh when looking at like what they were all wearing is, the sort of, I say ironically close to the 90s, a lot of loud colours and sideways caps and things like that. So, for 1987, not bad, guys, not bad. But nice to see Mark Williams again, Arthur Weasley himself.
Mark Williams, yes, and also I spotted. I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy he spent many years being in Holby City as a doctor.
Okay.
One of the sort of was he a surgeon? I can't remember.
Was it one of those at the table, the four of us?
Yeah, it was the one. It was the one that was at the front opposite the Mark Williams, but I can't remember his name. He was also in EastEnders for many years as well, and then he went on. He
got around.
Holby City, yeah. So it's these little actors that you notice, and in these scenes, it's quite nice. And it also set that flashback sort of set up some more stuff with Kotchanski, who of course we had sort of had hints of Dave's feelings for Kotchanski before in the very opening episode where we actually before he got frozen, and here we see a bit more of that, which then plays later on in the episode, later on in the episode as well. So it was kind of nice sort of setup and payoff again.
Yeah, and I mean we saw Kotchanski obviously towards the end sort of being taken over by Rimmer to sort of deter Dave. And, it's that fair play to, again, her name escapes me, which is bad, but fair play to the actress for him. Because I thought she got across, sort of some of Rimmer's mannerisms, both in her voice and her body. Because I think it's very obvious. The joke is they want us to know early on that this is Rimmer trying to pull a fast one by doing this. But I don't know, I just think if you're an actor who's been told, do a imitation of another character, I think it is all about those sort of smaller mannerisms or the way they say things or the language. And I just thought she pulled that off perfectly. You knew it was Rimmer, like straight away. So
yeah. One thing we mentioned in the past was that this being from the 1980s, some of the humour might have dated a little bit. And there were two instances where I've come down on both involving Kotchanski, where I think I've come down on very different sides of it. Because both of them kind of come across as a little bit sexist. Because in that flashback scene, all the lads around the table are all sort of doing this chant about how many blokes that Kotchanski slept with. It did make me cringe a little bit, that. So that was the first one, which I sort of come down as that doesn't quite sit well with me. But then later on, when in that scene you were just talking about where Rimmer is in using her body as a sort of holographic camouflage, there's a bit where he sort of looks down his own shirt, which is her body, and comments on the fact that, well, I've seen something you'll never see. But why that I don't think that's quite as bad as the first time is because we're not really meant to like Rimmer. We're meant to think he's, got questionable morals. So we're not necessarily on his... They're not portraying it as we're meant to be on his side while he's doing that. And in fact, the look on Lister's face kind of was how I was feeling about it. So I think that one fits quite well with his character, and so it doesn't feel quite as out of place in 2020 as the other scene did. I don't know if you picked up on that
I mean,
or not.
I must admit that scene in the canteen when they're all sort of chanting about, or how many people has like Kotchanski slept with and stuff. I think my initial take from that was just, they're doing the whole, it's like, those daft drunk lads at a party sort of thing. Not saying that's excusable. Obviously, I'd never want to be, I'd say, if I was with my mates and they started doing that, like in a pub or something, I think I'd just walk away, because that's like, again, it's that stereotypical laddish behaviour. And I'm sure when you look back at, a lot of TV of the day and when it goes into the 90s and stuff, that is still very much there, not so much now. So no, I must admit, my knee jerk surprisingly wasn't that, this is a bit cringe. I think I was just like, they're doing the whole drunken lads thing. But I
suppose, and also I suppose we did say, like last week, British shows, especially this era, and a lot of British shows, as opposed to American ones, they don't necessarily write it for you to root for the protagonist, and you don't necessarily have to like the protagonist. Like Dave Lister's a disgusting man in many ways, so I suppose this is just another one of the things you can add to that list.
Yeah, and with the second one, again, I totally understand what you said about the whole, like, the idea of the joke and stuff, and how you might not necessarily see that now, in obviously with how things have changed over the last 30 odd years. But I think, again, I sort of viewed it as it was just a moment of Rimmer being almost like childish in a way. You know that thing when kids hate to say it, but you know, kids at school when they've done something or seen something, they've like one up their mate and they've gone, "Oh, I've done that, you haven't," sort of thing. Because I've thought as the episodes have gone on, and you know, that Dave and Rimmer are very much in many respects childish towards each other. It's like that schoolboy rivalry or teasing sort of thing. So I think I just saw it as like an example of that, you know, just Rimmer basically going, "Oh, I've got the one up here." But yeah, it's a joke. You know, if I was writing this show in 2021, I probably wouldn't have included that. You know, there was millions of other jokes you could have made, but yeah. But I don't think it. You know, it didn't make me go, "Oh God." Do you know what I mean? I didn't have that strong sort of knee jerk, I guess.
No, it just kind of felt like it didn't make me dislike the episode at all, or even that scene. It's just it just felt dated, I guess.
Yeah, I've just noticed I wrote in my notes, I put nice cheap breast joke to finish off with. So I was like, that summarizes it right there, I think, doesn't it? But I'll tell you what, though, a gag that wasn't bad, but I think is an example of it going on too long, was the fish gag with Kat in the drive room. You know, when he goes to the machine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Only because he does it, I think he does it about 6 times. And the first, I think, 3 for me, I genuinely did laugh. It was funny. Like, again, his whole sort of suave appearance. And he's like, "Fish!" And the machine just keeps doing it. But then I was like, oh, we're still... Because to me, there's nothing added. It is him, you know, literally just stood there going, "Fish, fish, fish." And the machine saying the same thing. If maybe the food machine had done it, but maybe, you know, been a bit more sassy or said something different each time to sort of add to the joke, I just think it was one of them where after the 3rd time I was like, okay, I get it. You want fish and you're getting fish. Do you know what I mean? It was like too long.
I think that the length of it for me was part of what made it, but I can see what you mean. Maybe it would have been better if the machine had started saying like, okay, again, or something else, just to, even if it just changed its inflection of its voice or something to alter it, that might have solved
I think that was it for me. The joke just seemed like it was almost too static. Like once they established what it was, it didn't add or even subtract anything. It just stayed the same for an extra 3 rounds, so to speak.
Yeah. I mentioned this before on the podcast, but the whole set is very grey, and there's little bits of colour, not a massive amount. But what struck me is, and you kind of get used to that, but then I noticed in this episode, even the cans of beer are just grey cans.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That was clearly an aesthetic choice. I'm guessing it's to, you know, this is a working environment that they're meant to. They're on a mining ship. It's meant to be depressing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I read somewhere just recently, because I think I was trying to find the artist of the theme song for the end. But I just, you know, I read some basic notes about how like they got started and stuff. And I think I read that the design of either, I can't remember if it was specifically the drive room or just the whole ship, was meant to sort of replicate what the Trident submarines were doing in the UK, you know, the nuclear program.
Yeah.
Because, of course, in the 80s, that was always a big talking point, wasn't it? Should we have a nuclear deterrent? The whole back and forth argument. And, you know, for anyone who knows the history, Maggie Thatcher certainly thought we did. But apparently that was some inspiration, like the design. I can't picture them in my mind's eye, but apparently some of the design of those submarines on the inside was partly the inspiration for the Red Dwarf ship on the inside.
Oh, yeah. Well, it does have the interior does have a very submarine feel to it. Oh, I thought there was some interesting sort of potentially verging on cultural commentary at one point where Rimmer is talking, they're having a conversation when Dave is about to go off and do his exam and he's studying for his exams. And there's a conversation where he says, "Oh, you always follow the rules, don't you? Or you always respect your superiors and stuff." Sort of hinting that, like, oh, you'll obviously do what I say when I become superior because you follow the rules. And what Rimmer said in reply was, "If you mean I respect my superiors no matter who they are, and I obey the orders blindly and unquestionably, yes, I do." And I just thought that was like, because it was sort of the way Chris Barry performed it and everything. It was clearly meant to indicate that, like, following blindly and never questioning orders is not a good thing. So I just thought it was a nice little moment of cultural commentary sort of in there.
Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, and this probably wasn't the intention at all, but knowing of what 1980s history I do and the, not the social and political climate of the time, you could argue that Lister and Rimmer are those two very different dynamics in some respects. Rimmer being that sort of, for sake of argument here, that sort of, Margaret Thatcher following, oh, I'll do whatever the higher ups say, clean and proper, must follow the rules like the old ways. And Lister's sort of that more, I want to maybe like, free thinking, that sort of more progressive, oh, let's try things in a new way. As I say, that probably wasn't the intention from the start, but now that it's funny you mentioned that, and those parallels instantly popped in my head, because they are totally different characters, and you could argue they represent maybe those two different kinds of society back then.
Yeah. Then we get to the sort of ending where Lister has taken the exam. He's taken, and first of all, Rimmer's quite smug about it because he's like, "You don't know anything about engineering," and he tests him, and he's, "No, I don't know anything. I don't know that answer to that question, don't I?" Then he finds out he's doing the chef's exam, which I thought was a great little twist, and just like, oh, he could actually pass it and then be his superior, and Rimmer starts to get actually worried about it.
Yeah. And I guess it shows how there's the different hierarchies on this ship, how the technicians, are considered the lowest class under the chefs, or even, I think, as Rimmer says, even lower than the guy who changes the bog roll. So even so, the janitors,
Exactly. Yeah. And then so they're waiting around, and he gets his results, but we never find out. We never get expressly told what he got as his results, and it ends with a sort of cliffhanger in a way, because he sort of ends with Rimmer going, "What did you get? What did you get, Rimmer? What did you get? What did you get, Lister?" And he goes, and Lister just goes back, "What did you get, Lister, sir?"
Yeah.
Indicating that he passed, and then it ends on like a typical cheesy 80s freeze frame of him jumping in the air.
Very, very of the time. I like that. I was like, I wondered if a freeze frame was gonna appear.
Yeah. What did you think about the ending? Did you like that ending?
I did, in the sense that, he said it, but I think, again, it's like, oh, well, I hope this... I think I liked it on the condition that it was going to be continued or built upon more in episode 4, which, at the time of this recording, I have seen, but I will save my thoughts for episode 4 of this podcast. But I think that was, when I finished episode 3, it was like, yeah, it's like, okay, assuming he's got it then, I'd like to see how this changes things then in the ship. Yeah. So... but yeah, it was a nice ending in that sense. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, if you want to know my thoughts on how it continued episode 4, we'll have to wait till next week whenever episode 4 comes out.
Yeah, dude, don't forget to subscribe and do all those things wherever you're listening to this. Right, so some of the things I like to ask every week of us. What was your funniest moment on the of the episode?
It's got to be the the scuttlers in the cinema watching a film about cows, just because you saw the film first, and I was like, okay. And then when you just see the two little hands, I just burst out laughing, because it's like, of course they'd be doing something like this. And just that whole scene, when Rimmer's asking about them and they hold up the dustpan and brush, like, yes, we are working, and like... the whole, flipping 2 fingers up to him or 2 claws or whatever. It was just a really funny little scene that if you think about it, it didn't need to be there, but I'm so glad it was there. It was just, yeah. I think they're becoming my favourite comedic characters, the various bits of machinery on the ship.
Yeah, they're such good, especially the scuttlers. They're just, the physical comedy that they manage to do with such simple puppetry is
Yeah.
It's really good. My favourite bit was there's a sort of plot line which we haven't really touched upon, which is that Holly keeps giving Rimmer or gives Rimmer the wrong body part, the body part of another crew member.
Yes,
and he gives him
yeah.
this other crew member's arm at one point, which is all hairy and has tattoos. And then there's a scene in the drive room where it seems to suddenly, it hasn't up to this point had its mind of its own, but it suddenly gets a mind of its own and starts attacking Rimmer.
Yeah.
So he's having a fight with what is essentially his own arm, but it's somebody else's arm. So he's having a fight with himself and punching himself. And I was just, it was one of the moments that made me laugh out loud. I just thought it was so funny. Great, physical comedy from Chris Barry there.
Oh, absolutely.
It was, really funny.
Yeah.
And that,
No,
of
I
course,
enjoyed that. Yeah.
The whole accidentally giving body parts, or not accident, Holly probably did it deliberately, what sort of plays into the being Kotchanski later on. It kind of set up the fact that he could have his personality in another body, or bits of his other people on the hologram emitters could work that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Who was your favorite character this episode?
Oh, I'm tempted to say the Scuttlers again, but I won't. I'll diverge from that. Favorite character? Well, again, like if I could be technical, and I mean from an acting standpoint, I'd say the woman who plays Kotchanski in the scene where she's being Rimmer, again for the points I mentioned earlier, just for the attention to detail that she wasn't just playing herself, she was playing a Rimmer version of Kotchanski. So I'd say from an acting standpoint, I'd probably say her. From a character standpoint, even though I said, it was very laddish behaviour, I like that table of lads, in the flashback, because aside from, the cringy, how many people has she slept with, I just like seeing four good mates sort of on a night out have a bit of a laugh with each other, I guess, and a bit of banter. And then I think that had even more weight to it when you cut back to the present. And like we said earlier, you just see Lister on his own. So yeah, I think that just that little gang, I think they were my favourite characters of this episode.
Those flashback scenes that kind of pop up a couple of times throughout series one, I think, given that there's such a small cast for this show, it's nice to have those moments where we get to see what their lives were like elsewhere, and the fact that we are contained at this point in the series to just the ship as well. Just having those moments where we get to see a bit more life other than just Lister and Rimmer at each other's throats, and just the cat being a eccentric cat thing.
Yeah, it's that variety, isn't it? And I'm glad, I kind of expected the other crew members would show up at some point, but I am glad that they are, because I think we mentioned it in one of the previous episodes where whilst Chris Barry and Craig Charles are two phenomenal actors, and Danny John Jules as well, it's very difficult to carry like a whole series of 6 episodes in a limited amount of spaces with just 2 characters. It can be done, of course it can, but I'd say in the sense of a sitcom, it's even more difficult, because sitcoms traditionally, the way they work and get their laughs are these big ensemble cast, loads of people coming in, coming out, guest stars, all that sort of stuff. Whereas this one sort of, I think, goes against at the minute anyway, like the typical sitcom grain, how it is just primarily 3, 4 if you count Holly characters.
So, I mean, that's kind of, I think I've gone through all my notes. Is there anything else you had that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've covered all my bases there. Like, as all the points we've mentioned, good and bad. I think we should get into the rating, don't you?
Yeah.
I'll let you go first this time, because for anyone who listened to the last 2, I started and then Philip ended up saying the exact same as me. So hopefully this time you'll say yours and mine will be different. But
yeah, well, I definitely enjoyed this episode more than I did the last one. And no episode has been bad so far, but there was just something that there wasn't as many laughs in the second episode as there was in the first one. And again, I think I had more laughs this time around. So I think I'm going to give this one 4 Scuttlebugs out of 5.
Ooh. Well, you'll be pleased to know we aren't going to say the same, which is good. I'm in the same vein as you. I enjoyed it more than episode 2, Future Echoes. I like seeing the power dynamic explored between Lister and Rimmer. As I mentioned, I loved the flashback scene, seeing a bit more of the crew as well. There's some great physical comedy acting in there, although, as I said as well, some jokes I think were either a bit too long or a bit dated, but that's not necessarily the episode's fault. That's just hindsight, passing of time, etc. So with all that considered, I think I'll give it 3.5 Scutterbugs out of 5. I guess points for improvement for me would have been... I'm going to say I would have maybe even liked a little bit more time in the flashback. Just a little bit, maybe something between Lister and Kotchanski specifically. Because before, even though he says, I love her and I want to tell her, all we'd really seen of them up to that point was that brief scene in episode 1 in the drive room when he's like sort of making a move on her and then the captain calls him in. So whilst I think it is an obvious character trait, I would have maybe liked to see a flashback scene exploring that a bit. All those times maybe he's tried to say it and has failed.
Yeah, because he's it's pointed out that he's only spoken a certain amount of words to her.
Yeah, it was like, I can't remember how many it was now. Not many,
I can't
but
remember either, but it wasn't a massive amount. So that time that we saw her in episode 1, that was probably one of their longest interactions they'd ever had.
True, yeah. No, absolutely. And I guess the other main point for me, as I've said, and I'm sure it'll happen as it goes on, maybe a bit more development or something different with the cat character. Whilst, as we said, like that whole cool persona, it is cool. But I think for me, that whole, I want to see something a little bit different now, aside from just the, looking good and all that sort of stuff. It's not bad. Red Dwarf fans, hear me out. It's not bad. But it's just starting to show, 3 episodes in, I'm like, okay, I want to see something a bit more now than just what we've already been shown. So yeah, 3.5 for me.
Excellent. We will be back for another episode reviewing the next episode, Waiting for God, very soon. So do check out all of the, subscribe and stuff to all that jazz.
Yes.
Where can we find you, Adam, on the internet? If people want to hunt you out, find your own YouTube channel, those type of things.
I thought you were going to say hunt me down then.
Hunt you down.
Probably for
disagreeing.
It's all the big Red Dwarf fans being like, destroy the newbie. No, if you want to find me or check out some of my work, you can on YouTube. Just type in Adam Martyn. That's Martyn with a Y. And I should pop up. I'm on Twitter at Adam Martyn Actor, where you can just see what videos I'm working on, my opinions on various things. I mean, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, amongst other things, so if you like that, you'll hopefully like what I have to tweet and the videos I put out. Those are my two mains, really, just Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me, just Twitter and YouTube. Philip Hawkins is me on YouTube at the moment, and Twitter, I really need to change this, because I have to spell it out every time.
I love this story.
IUDEX, which is pronounced Udex. It's not an L at the beginning, it's an I, and it's a silent I.
The amount of times I've heard someone say, Ludex Phil on Twitter.
I know, I need to change it, but I've had it for like 10 years. It's difficult to change.
It's that thing, isn't it? You've had it for so long, it's like you just become gripped to it.
Yeah,
but...
so it's that. It's IUDEX_Phil. Is
Udex, people. Udex.
Udex. Don't you know your Latin?
Yeah.
It's so pretentious, it's ridiculous. There we go. That's where you can find us. We'll be here for the next week, to review another episode. See you then.
See you later.